Then what are we arguing about?
I'm just saying, it could have been that way, and you said no, it couldn't.
Not
That's all it
according to the
could
book.
be. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 2 of the Honest Apostates. We're breaking down Genesis 2 this time, and this is where we start talking about really in depth about the creation of man, and this is where things start to get really get weird. I think is being generous.
Yeah, it's been weird.
Genesis 1 was the end of the 6th day. Heavens and the earth were finished. And on the 7th day, God ended his work and rested and blessed the 7th day, sanctified it. It was holy. In Genesis 1, man was created on day 6.
And the female man, too.
And the female man. Now in Genesis 2, day 7 is come and gone. Everything is done. But the Lord had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground. So there went up a mist from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. And the Lord God
that thing that he made already.
Yeah.
He didn't make it.
Disappeared.
Yeah, didn't happen. So that's the first contradiction of terms there.
Right. This what it indicates, like, from a literary perspective or a contextual analysis perspective, is that like this is a different author telling a different version of the story, right, to focus on a different element.
May in fact be. I don't know where you would separate that, because we go in and says, thus the heavens and the earth were finished and all the host of them, meaning everything that my understanding of, and all the host of them, meaning all the things that are going to be there are there.
I can only interpret it to mean everything that's going to be was.
Because he then goes on, he ended his work, and he rested on the 7th day from all his work which he had made. Which, interestingly enough, brings up that apparently this God needs to rest. He gets tired. There's no reason to rest without being tired.
As we mentioned in the last video, he used up all his spell slots.
He used up all of his mana.
I guess he has 7 spell slots or 6 spell slots. So he used them all. He had to take a long rest to recover them.
What leveled spell do you think making all of the water-based creatures and all of the air creatures, but not the land creatures, what leveled spell do you think that'd be?
That's probably, so I mean, it kind of depends on which rule set we're using, and I don't want to use any names, but if we're like, let's say everybody's, the most common favorite, right? I think we're probably looking at least a level 5 spell, I think, to do all of the water and the air animals, but not the land animals. And to differentiate, like, because there are some that do both or all 3. So,
well, I'd have to say that would have to be at least a 10th level spell.
Maybe I was too generous.
Because a 5th level spell.
I think I've historically been a generous game master. So
I guess.
What are we talking about?
But he goes on. These are the generations of the heaven and the earth when they were created in the day that the Lord God made the earth and the heavens, every plant and herb. Gosh, it's exhausting. There went up a mist from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And man became a living soul.
If all of the earth was misted, if it was all wet,
all of the ground,
where did he find dirt? Wouldn't it have been mud?
I interpreted that to be that he was a mud man. He was a man of clay.
He is a mud man. Adama does mean a clot of wet dirt.
There you go. Look at that. Yeah. We got there.
That's not my opinion.
And then we're going to get into some geographical stuff here, which is pretty fun. It says here in my version, the King James version, the only real Bible, all others are fake, right, guys? And the Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. So there's a place called Eden. And in that, and it's east. Where east? Not important. Wherever you are, it's east of where you are.
East of there.
We'll say it's east of where Moses was, which is, half the world. So we've narrowed it down a bit.
East of where Moses, so we're talking about like just outside Egypt.
Yeah, so just east of there, and grew every tree that is pleasant to the sight. So not any of the ugly trees. We made this
No.
distinction. None of the ugly trees, only the trees that are pleasant to the sight.
God's not responsible for those.
And furthermore, I'd like to say that there were apparently trees that were unpleasant to the sight. Otherwise, there would be no reason to put this distinction. And good for food. The tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. We don't ever really talk about the tree of life again, other than for God to say, woo, glad they didn't eat from that one too.
Yeah. Which I don't understand why. I see, because if death didn't exist, what was the tree of life?
That's the tree of extra not dying. There you go. You'd super not die then. Yeah, you make a very good point.
Yeah. Well, really, it's the antidote to antidote. I meant antidote. My bad. The consequence of eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, apparently.
Apparently.
And it
foreshadowing.
We'll
God was foreshadowing right there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Wasn't every tree every tree except the tree of knowledge of good and evil the tree of life then?
You could say.
It's interesting. But then we talk about rivers, and a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from thence it was parted and became into four heads. And this is where I had a lot of fun, because I got to look at a whole bunch of maps and read a lot about
I did it too.
But we're gonna dig into this real quick. There's the River Pison, which we can't find anywhere
today.
Can't find that river. Don't know where it is
today.
That is with compasseth the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold. Now, this is interpreted and understood to be some sort of African country where there's a bunch of gold.
The gold there is good. The gold there is good.
Apparently. And the gold of that land is good.
Yeah.
There is bdellium and onyx stone. Now, there's several different places in Africa that this could be, but we don't have an agreed upon location for it.
Yeah. No word on the quality of the bdellium or the onyx.
No idea. One place we can say it isn't is it's not Sudan, because we later talk about Sudan, modern day Sudan anyway.
Ah, yes.
It can't be Sudan.
Does it? It doesn't say that they're not the same place.
It says encompass the whole land of Havilah, and then they later refer to the whole land of Ethiopia, which is modern day Sudan. So,
right, but it doesn't. That doesn't specify that Havilah and Ethiopia were not considered. Like, there could be different names. There could have been a part of what they called Ethiopia that they called Havilah. So, like, you know what I mean?
So
it doesn't.
I understand what you're saying, and I think you're being a little bit unreasonable. Because if I say, yeah, my buddy Chad, he has a really big red house, and we call it the Bone House. And then I say, yeah, my buddy Frank, he has a really big blue house, and we call it the Scone House. You're not going to be like, well, he didn't specify if Chad and Frank are different people. Just different.
You said
Chad is the nickname for Frank.
No, I agree. I think it's likely that they're probably describing two different places. It's just maybe I'm being pedantic. It's not explicit.
It's as explicit as you can be without saying, hey, Havilah,
so for example,
and Ethiopia are different places.
For example.
Also, I'd like to, before you get to this, I would like for you to make me the case that two different rivers can encompass the whole of one land. I'd like you to make that case for me. Because what they're saying here is it encompasseth the whole land of Havilah, and that encompasseth the whole land of Ethiopia. So I'd like for you to make me the case that two different rivers encompass the whole land of one place.
Isn't that two rivers encompassing two places?
Exactly. So by that, Ethiopia and Havilah cannot be the same place.
But the Missouri River and the Mississippi River encompasseth St. Louis.
No, they don't. One rides alongside, and the other rides along the other side. But they don't each encompass the entire. They don't each encompass St. Louis.
But is there not a spot where they intersect? I believe there are two.
They do become the same river, but now it's not the Missouri River anymore.
There is.
Eli, I want you to answer this question for me. Does the Missouri River encompass all of St. Louis?
So, and that's what I was thinking. That's what I was about to correct myself on.
There you go.
Is that I was thinking there was a spot where, for some reason in my head, for a second, St. Louis was an island. I was imagining Highway 270 that goes all the way around. But no, let's say if there's a river going this way, another river coming this way, and this one splits, it forks right before it joins this one for some reason.
Yep.
Those two rivers encompasseth whatever land is there in the middle.
Notice how you said two rivers?
Yeah.
Not one river?
The one going this way and the one that came here that forked into two like pieces. You can call those two or three different. You can call these one or two different river because
those would be two different rivers.
Okay.
When a river forks, it becomes two rivers, not two parts of one river.
Okay.
I encourage you to find me a river where it forks and they're both still the same river. We're very consistent on this. When it forks, it's a new
I guess
waterway.
that's the case. I can imagine.
You can imagine whatever you want.
Okay, even if I don't have a specific example of something happening, there could take place a geographic arrangement in which two rivers surround a place.
Yeah, you're right. But they aren't each surrounding the place. They are working together to surround the place.
That's what I thought I was trying to describe.
But that's not what it says in the book.
No.
Then what are we arguing about?
I'm just saying it could have been that way, and you said no, it couldn't.
Not according to the book.
Be.
Either that is what happened, or what happened in the book is what happened, and clearly, what happened in the book didn't happen.
No, I don't think what happened in the book. The rivers that the rivers that the book talks about, we can't find today.
This is what I want to take back. On occasion, a river will split into two beds and remain the same river. However, as far as I can tell, that is only the case when it either joins with another river very shortly afterward or reconjoins back to itself, creating, I would say, not two new rivers, but just the presence of an island in the river.
In the one river.
So that is the clarification I'm trying to make here. Anyway, there's bdellium and onyx stone. We don't know how good they are.
Yeah.
And the name of the second river is Gihon. The same is it that compasseth the whole land of Ethiopia, which would be referred to in the modern day as Sudan. Current day Ethiopia isn't Ethiopia from then. And the third river is the Hiddekel, which is in the modern day called the Tigris River. And that is it which goeth toward the east of Assyria. And the fourth river is the Euphrates. Don't need to elaborate on that. That's still the Euphrates.
Yeah.
That one's stuck around. Now, it's interesting to talk about this Gihon. There is not a current river called Gihon, but there is a spring in Israel, a spring, what have you, in Israel that is the Gihon Spring. Now, whether that is the same river or not, I interpret it to be, all of these great rivers that bring you such life and give your crops this and this spring that's been clean and good to your people. Yeah, the reason they're good is because they flow from this awesome place that my God made. That is my interpretation of how that could have possibly come about.
It would have been characteristic to relate an important theological location to important geographic locations. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
And then we go on, took the man, put him in the garden, even though he already did that, because back in 2:8 he said there he put the man, and then here in 2:15 he put him again. So he put him there, picked him up, put him back down.
Yeah. After
and
having put them there on the 6th day and then
yeah,
erasing them,
yeah, after doing that, he did it
Control
again and
Z.
again. And he commanded the man, of every tree in the garden thou mayest freely eat, including apparently the tree of life, which is interesting. He didn't. You're allowed to eat that one because
He
there's no
didn't
death
say
yet. There's no
not to
death
eat
yet.
the tree of life.
There's no death yet. You're good.
Yeah.
You're.
He's like, I don't give a shit what you do. Just
But
don't
of
eat
the
that
tree
one.
of knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die. Now, this is important because that was a lie. That was just a bald-faced lie. That did not happen.
Yep.
Either that, or God just didn't know what would happen if the thing that he made ate the fruit from the tree that he also made, which I find to be ridiculous. He
Or he
clearly
didn't
lied.
account for them having already eaten from the tree of life.
Possibly ate from the tree of life. Who knows? But that's the thing, and people like to make an excuse and say, "Well, he's not saying that he's not saying the thing he said. In fact,
What he
what
meant
he's saying
was,
is death will enter into the world, man, and things will start dying."
yeah,
Which I'm like, okay, well, does God know what a day is? Clearly, he does because he made them.
yeah.
So
But yeah, like imagine hearing that from the perspective of a person that is hearing like everything being said for the first time. Like things have never been said before.
mhm.
And now
These are the
someone says like, "Oh, if you eat that, you're going to die." And now you have to figure out what all of these words mean.
let's
Like,
be
okay.
generous. I want to be generous because I love doing that because it rarely ever makes a difference. Let's be generous and say that the Lord God gave him knowledge of language.
Yeah, yeah.
First of all, death isn't a thing that exists in this story at this point. So he gave him knowledge of a thing and then also said, and by the way, that thing doesn't exist. The knowledge that he got of this word included that it doesn't exist, presumably, because he knows that trees exist. So he'd have to know, you know what I'm saying? And also
Maybe.
he doesn't know this. This is an interesting thing that we'll touch on a lot because this bothers me. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Eli, if you were to venture a guess, what do you think happens when you eat the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil?
To know what good and bad means.
There you go. There's a command here to do a thing, which he presumably at this time didn't know would be bad to not follow that rule. Seems like, that little thing where people like to say that God didn't make us to be robots. Seems like he kind of did. And then it got out of hand. But let's keep going. That's not till chapter 3. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves. I just wanted to dig into that real quick because it pisses me off.
Well, and I want to.
Yeah.
The location of Eden thing, like obviously, like without like with these two rivers that are like crucial for pinpointing where it's supposed to have existed, like not knowing where those rivers are supposed to have existed, obviously that throws a wrench in the works. But we can say like there's a spot where like the Tigris and the Euphrates, they don't come from the same place. But there's a spot where their sources get very, very close. There's two rivers that become the Euphrates. One of them is called the Murat River. And then the Tigris comes from a mountain lake called Lake Hazar. And there's a spot where that lake and the Murat River are about 6 miles apart at their closest. And it is a pretty shit region. Like it looks like the South Dakota Badlands. It's not like by any means a paradise. Now, the way it describes it is that that's where Eden was. That water came out of Eden. Now I can imagine that to 6,000 years ago, perhaps the geological framework of the area was different, so that the bodies of water were different. But I briefly looked into it, and it doesn't seem like there's any evidence that that was the case, at least not to the extent that like rivers that don't exist anymore were flowing out of one massive river that existed, in the mountainous regions of eastern Turkey. But that's where, like, if there were any place on Earth that geographically met the vague, or even meets some of the criteria of the description that the Genesis gives of the location of Eden, it's the mountains of eastern Turkey, and it looks like shit.
And now he's about to do the thing I hate. And out of the ground the Lord formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air. Oh, interesting little thing. Apparently Adam did not name the sea creatures. Just the beasts of the field and the fowl of the air. So those are up for grabs. Those are up for grabs. I'm going to name them. It's called the Tracy fish. All of them. All of them are called the Tracy fish.
Okay. So
except
here's
for
what
the
I'm
whales.
I'm gonna toss some marine animals up on the screen.
With my face on them.
And you're just gonna name these real quick, sight unseen. Because I'm gonna pick them later.
Gotcha.
This one.
Tracy fish.
Now this one.
Tracy fish.
This one.
Tracy fish.
This one.
Pass.
Good name. This one.
Tracy fish.
Okay, we can move on. I can't wait to see what I come up with.
I'm excited. I guess I'll wait and see. I'll see when it comes out. Yeah, he named all the creatures. We don't have access to these names because he very clearly did not speak English, probably didn't speak Hebrew because of the Tower of Babel and all that business. So the names of all these creatures are lost to us. And then God roofied him, took his rib out, made a lady out of it because he needed a helpmeet. Now, I want to go over this word because I got schooled when I went on Truth Wanted.
Yeah.
Because I mentioned helpmeet. And I was like, it was such a weird word. And we had to, like, eventually we figured it out, but we had to do a whole bunch of looking up to just figure out what this dang word meant. Yeah. And then everybody was just throwing out the definition. Just,
hey, it means this.
Like, yeah, it just means like a helper. I'm like, I get that now.
A suitable servant. Yeah, we got there. Thank you.
I feel like I went over that in Truth Wanted, that we figured it out. So I didn't need all that help, but thank you. Anyway, there's bdellium and onyx stone. We don't know how good they are. So he made a lady out of a rib woman, as I affectionately call her, because they named her woman, didn't give her a proper name yet. And Adam said, this is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother and cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. I think they talk about boning right there. That's my interpretation, cleaving unto a woman. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. Why would they be? The only people there are their wife and him.
Yeah.
And God.
Well, no, this is to suggest that nudity is something to be ashamed of. That's what this is. But back then, when everything was perfect and there was no sin in the world, then nudity wasn't sinful.
I don't even know where we would put down. I would need chapter and verse where it says nudity is sinful. But there we go. That was chapter 2. You have some big stuff to take about. We got really off the rails in chapter 2 here.
Yeah. Well, and I'll even clarify. I don't think it says it doesn't say directly that nudity is sinful, but the implication is that once they eat is that now they know they're naked and they're ashamed of it because they know the knowledge, they know the difference between good and bad, between good and evil. And being naked is evil apparently, and that's why it's
a weird mental thought, right?
Yeah.
Because if in fact being nude is bad, then covering oneself is good.
Yeah.
Then it would have already been that way. It's not the tree of creating good and evil. It's the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
Right.
So they were doing a thing bad. They just didn't know.
Yeah. And he was like, well, whatever. They don't know any better.
Which, great.
So why give us the ability to know better? Like if we can do the bad thing and it doesn't matter because we don't know that it's bad, then why? It's
a weird nonsense book by Iron Age goat herders that didn't understand these things.
Yeah.
But that, Eli, you want to outro us? I outroed us last time.
Yeah. That was Genesis 2. You don't have anything left to add? You sound like you've concluded your thoughts.
Whoever wrote this book, I hate their literary style.
Yeah.
At least this Genesis, I hate it because they are different books. Yeah. Whoever wrote this Genesis book, I hate their literary style. It's just annoying.
I think it's possible that there was multiple authors. I'll have more information about that next time we speak.
Whosoever wrote it.
I agree. It's not easy to follow, but also I'm not an ancient Israelite, so maybe it would have been. Context matters.
Specifically was not written for anybody but those people.
True.
So there you go.
Yeah. So that'll do it this time. Join us soon for more adventures of Dirt Man and Bone Woman.
Bye-bye. How far can a dog run into the forest? Halfway.